guys, this is Kristen, and this is going to be kind of a continuation on Italian history, Strega, and it's also going to be kind of a book review on Charles Leland's Aradia, the Gospel of the Witches. A lot of people think that the first witchcraft book that's considered credible, that makes people realize that witchcraft is not so much evil but a practice of a religion. That would have been in 1921, Margaret Murray's The Witch Cult, which was written in the early 1900s, 1921, and that a lot of people consider the first real witchcraft book. It actually was Charles Leland in 1889. He did a lot of research and interviewed people all over Italy. He already was considered a credible person as far as magic and things like that. He did not practice paganism or witchcraft. He was just doing research. He had already written a book called Etruscan, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Etruscan Magic. So people wanted to hear what he had to say. They valued his opinion. So Aradia, the Gospel of the Witches, is the book that I'm going to be reviewing and talking about some of the stories in there. This is probably going to be a several-part video because there's a lot of stories that you guys probably would be interested in hearing. This book has basically it's a creation story with other stories in it. It includes the Italian language with the translations. Now, some of the incantations that are in this book, there's specific spells in this book. There's directions on how to conjure Diana, how to conjure Aradia, and some other conjurations in there. And Gerald Gardner and Doreen Valiente used a lot of what is in here. A lot of what's in this book has inspired Gardnerian traditions. In fact, the Charge of the Goddess that a lot of you are familiar with is actually taken directly from this book. So the language, Italian, anyone who's been involved in Strega knows that from a very young age, Italian children in this Strega tradition are taught from a very early age to speak in rhyme. A lot of it is very rhyming, it's very musical, and it's very beautiful. So some of the myths and legends come from the witches of Tuscany. A lot of it comes from Florence, and it's very similar to the creation story in the Bible. You know how in Genesis it talks about God was the first in existence. He created the heavens and the earth. He created light and darkness. This goes along with that. So, and the tools that are used in this tradition are not the typical, the shiny metals and things like that. It's more the fruits, lemons, oranges. The offerings tend to not be silver and gold, but things like salt, wine, and bread, which makes it a much more appealing tradition to just the regular people. It's not something that only priests, priestesses, nobility, people in palaces are able to relate to. It's something that peasants and everybody else really feel connected to, because everybody had fruit trees and salt and bread and stuff like that. Okay, so I'll start with the creation story. Diana, who is like the main goddess of the moon, she's Lucifer's sister. Lucifer in Christian tradition is he was an angel who was cast out of heaven. Lucifer is very proud because of his beauty. He's considered very handsome, very beautiful, and he's very proud because of that. So that's why he was cast from paradise. He's the god of the sun and the moon, which basically he's the god of light. Diana is the goddess of darkness. And Aradia, who we're going to be talking about, is the daughter of Diana and Lucifer. So yes, Diana laid with her brother and had a child by him. So during this time, the rich people kept many, many slaves. The slaves were treated cruelly, and they would escape. They would either slay their masters while they were sleeping, or they would make a plan and escape. They would flee into the mountains and the forests and everything. And Aradia, the daughter of Diana and Lucifer, was actually chosen to become their goddess, the goddess of the thieves and who were the slaves that fled. They became thieves and robbers, and they lived in the forest. That was the only way that they could survive. So they would rob people that were coming through. So these people were really down and out. They were considered bad people. And so Diana's plan was to send her daughter Aradia to become human. She would become immortal, and she would gather these people, and she would teach them witchcraft. She would teach them to cause the oppressors, who were the rich people, to cause their gardens and their fruit trees and everything to not flourish anymore. She would teach them witchcraft that would control thunderstorms, hail, rain, the weathers, all kinds of pestilences, in order to no longer let these rich people prosper. So they would be able to conquer their oppressors. Aradia would be the first witch, basically. She would teach the art of poisoning and binding the oppressors. Let's see, what else? So she instructs these people that when she's going to die, that they are to assemble once a month at the full moon. When they have any need, this is the time that they're going to ask her. Now, this is the traditional witches' creed that we know of. The wording is all taken from this book, The Gospel of the Witches. And it's very specific, to gather in a secret place and to adore the mother of Aradia, which is Diana. And Diana is the goddess of the moon. So all of this stuff that we have in our traditional witchcraft has been taken from Aradia when she was in her mortal form. She came to Earth and she taught everybody witchcraft and said, from now on, you're going to follow this. There's actually a similar part in here that reminds me of the Last Supper of Jesus, where he says, take this bread and eat it. This is my body, which was given up for you. There's a part in here where it says, take this bread, this is our body. Not literally our body, but that without food, without this salt, bread, wine, we wouldn't be able to live. So basically, it's not saying that it's a sacrifice, literally, of anything fleshly, but it's saying that the food is life. It's the body, because it goes into us and keeps our body alive and keeps our bodies going. I think that's really cool how it's basically the same story. So, it's very possible that the biblical stories were actually based on these pagan stories of creation. And they just mimic it to, carry it over to believing in God and Jesus. But it's just different names. With basically the same story. And whatever would be asked in Diana's name would be granted. Okay, I'm going to go to part 2.